Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our discussion. Tonight, we're delving into a highly debated topic. Does cancel culture cause more harm than good? We have two distinguished guests with us to explore this complex issue. Jamal Ahmed, a social activist who views cancel culture as a vital tool for accountability, and Sarah Chen, a journalist and free speech advocate, who raises concerns about its potential negative impacts. We'll begin with opening statements, followed by a moderated discussion and rebuttal, and conclude with closing remarks from each speaker. Jamal, would you like to begin with your opening statement?
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. I prefer to call it accountability culture or consequence culture because that's what it truly is. It's a response, often from the grassroots, to actions and speech that cause genuine harm, particularly to marginalized communities who have historically been silenced or ignored by traditional power structures. For too long, individuals in positions of power, be it in media, politics, or business, have acted with impunity, believing their status shielded them from repercussions. Accountability culture is a direct challenge to that impunity. It's a way for ordinary people, armed with the connectivity of social media, to collectively demand that standards of decency, respect, and responsibility apply to everyone. We've seen its positive impact. Figures who engaged in discriminatory behavior, sexual harassment, or propagated dangerous misinformation have faced tangible consequences. This isn't about petty grievances. It's about systemic change. It's about shifting societal norms to create a more equitable and just environment. When institutions fail to act, when legal systems are too slow or biased, public accountability becomes an essential mechanism for social justice. It empowers those who have been disempowered and sends a clear message that harmful actions will not be tolerated. This isn't just about punishment. It's about education and deterrence. It forces a public conversation about what is acceptable and what is not. Therefore, I believe it is a fundamentally positive development, a tool for progress, however imperfect it may be at times.
Thank you, Jamal. Sarah, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes, and thank you, Jamal, for your perspective. I absolutely agree that accountability is crucial in any society. Where I differ is in the methods and the current manifestation of what is popularly termed cancel culture. While the desire to hold people accountable for harmful actions or speech is understandable and often justified, the way it frequently plays out is deeply concerning. What we often see is not a carefully considered process of accountability, but rather a form of digital mob justice. Accusations, sometimes anonymous or unverified, can spread like wildfire online, leading to swift and severe consequences before any real investigation or due process can occur. Individuals can lose their jobs, their reputations, and their social standing based on a tweet, an out-of-context remark, or even a past mistake for which they may have already atoned or learned from. This creates a significant chilling effect on free speech and open discourse. People become afraid to express nuanced opinions, ask difficult questions, or engage in good faith debate for fear of being misinterpreted, targeted, and quote canceled. This environment is antithetical to the robust exchange of ideas necessary for a healthy democracy and for intellectual progress. Moreover, the punishment often seems wildly disproportionate to the alleged offense. Is the goal genuine accountability and learning? Or is it public shaming and social banishment? There's also the risk of this tool being weaponized for personal vendettas or political point scoring, rather than genuine efforts to address harm. The lack of clear standards or an impartial adjudicator makes it ripe for misuse. So while I support accountability, I believe we must critically examine whether cancel culture, in its current form, is achieving that in a fair, proportionate, and ultimately productive way.
Thank you both for those compelling opening statements. Jamal, Sarah raises serious concerns about fairness and due process. How do you ensure that accountability doesn't become a form of mob rule? And what about the potential for mistakes or misjudgments in the public sphere?
That's a valid concern, Dr. Hayes. The term mob rule is often used to discredit legitimate public outcry, especially when it challenges established power. What some call a mob is often a collective of individuals, many from marginalized communities, finally finding a voice to speak out against injustices they've endured silently for too long. Public figures, institutions, and corporations have a significant platform and influence. With that comes a responsibility to the public. they should expect public scrutiny. Regarding mistakes, yes, the court of public opinion is not infallible, just as our legal systems are not. However, the public conversation also allows for correction and evolution of understanding. The overall impact is a heightened awareness and a shift in societal norms towards greater respect and inclusivity. The alternative, allowing harmful behavior to go unchecked, is far more damaging. We strive for accuracy, but the fear of occasional missteps shouldn't paralyze us from demanding accountability where it's clearly warranted.
Sarah, if not through public callouts, what are the more effective or fairer alternatives for holding individuals, especially those in power, accountable for harmful speech or actions?
That's a crucial question. I believe we need a multifaceted approach. Firstly, where applicable, existing legal frameworks for defamation, harassment, or discrimination should be robustly utilized and strengthened if necessary. But beyond legal measures, I advocate for restorative justice practices, where the focus is on repairing harm, fostering understanding, and reintegrating individuals, rather than solely on punishment and exclusion. This involves dialogue between the person who caused harm and those affected, aiming for genuine remorse and changed behavior. Educational approaches are also vital. Instead of immediate deplatforming, perhaps there can be opportunities for individuals to learn, to engage with criticism constructively, and to demonstrate growth. We should encourage a culture of robust debate and counterspeech, where bad ideas are challenged with better ideas, not simply silenced. Silencing dissent, even if the dissent is offensive to some, can prevent us from understanding and effectively combating harmful ideologies.
Thank you. Let's move to our second round of discussion. Sarah, you mentioned disproportionate consequences earlier. Can you elaborate on the long-term harm this might cause? And is there ever a pathway for redemption for those who have been canceled?
Certainly. The long-term harm can be devastating and multifaceted. We see careers destroyed, sometimes for a single misjudged comment made years ago, even if the person's subsequent behavior shows growth. The mental health impacts are severe. Public shaming, social isolation, and constant online harassment can lead to anxiety, depression, and worse. This isn't to excuse genuinely harmful behavior, but to question if the punitive response is always proportionate or productive. A significant problem with current cancel culture is the frequent lack of a clear pathway to redemption. If the goal is true accountability and societal improvement, then there must be room for individuals to learn, apologize meaningfully, make amends, and demonstrate change. When someone is permanently branded and ostracized, with no hope of reacceptance regardless of their efforts to change, it disincentivizes genuine remorse and learning. It can lead to bitterness and defensiveness, rather than reflection and growth. The focus should be on fostering an environment where people can acknowledge mistakes and evolve, not just on punishment for its own sake. Without a path to redemption, we risk creating a society that is less forgiving and ultimately less humane.
Jamal, how do you balance the need for accountability with the possibility of genuine remorse and change from an individual? When is enough enough?
This is where the community, particularly those most harmed by the actions or words, plays a crucial role. Accountability itself can be the catalyst for genuine remorse and change. It's not mutually exclusive. When someone faces real consequences for their behavior, it can force a period of reflection that might not otherwise occur. Redemption isn't simply about issuing a carefully crafted apology. It's about demonstrated, sustained change in behavior, attitude, and understanding. It involves listening to those who were harmed, educating oneself, and actively working to repair the damage and ensure it doesn't happen again. This process takes time and effort. Determining when a quote, enough is enough, isn't up to a single individual or a set formula. It often emerges from the community that was impacted. Have they seen genuine change? Has trust begun to be rebuilt? Sometimes, the harm caused is so severe, or the pattern of behavior so entrenched, that full public reacceptance may not be possible or appropriate, especially if the individual continues to hold a position of significant influence. The priority must be the safety and well-being of the community. But for many situations, if genuine change is evident and amends are made, then yes, there can be a path forward. It's a nuanced process, not a simple checklist.
We are moving towards our closing statements. Jamal, you have the floor.
Thank you. To reiterate, what some call quote-quote cancel culture is at its core a demand for accountability in a world where power has too often been a shield against it. It is a tool, imperfect perhaps, but vital, that gives voice to the voiceless and challenges the impunity of those who cause harm, whether through discrimination, abuse, or the spread of dangerous falsehoods. This collective action is a force for positive social transformation, pushing our society towards greater equity and justice. It reminds us that words and actions have consequences, especially for those in the public eye. While we should always be mindful of fairness and context, we must not let the fear of its misuse overshadow its fundamental importance in holding power accountable. Let us continue to use our collective voice responsibly to build a more equitable society for all.
Thank you, Jamal. Sarah, your closing statement.
Thank you. While I share the desire for a more just and accountable society, I remain deeply concerned about the current trends within, quote, cancel culture. The dangers of stifling free speech, the erosion of due process, the imposition of disproportionate punishments, and the creation of a climate of fear are significant harms that cannot be ignored. True accountability should aim to foster understanding, promote growth, and repair harm, not simply to silence, shame, and banish. We need more nuance, more compassion, and a greater commitment to the possibility of human change. Let us strive to develop better, less destructive methods to address wrongdoing. Methods that uphold both justice and the fundamental principles of open dialogue and forgiveness. Our goal should be a society that is not only accountable, but also resilient and humane.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jamal, for a truly insightful and thought-provoking discussion. You've both highlighted the complexities of cancel culture, with Jamal emphasizing its role in accountability and social justice, and Sarah underscoring concerns about fairness, free speech, and proportionality. It's clear there are no easy answers. We encourage our audience to reflect on the diverse perspectives shared tonight, and to continue this important conversation thoughtfully and respectfully. Good evening.